importantly, the Christmas tree represents a Christmas spirit.
If I never make it to Washington, D.C. at Christmas time, now I can say I've seen the Christmas tree.
I thought that the big Christmas tree was very cool, that it was so big.
This is a pretty cool thing, so we just wanted to come and check it out.
God bless America.
This land was made for you and me.
The Christmas holiday, it's all about family and tradition. In fact, I can remember this one time when I was a little girl that my mom would make this almond pastry. It was so delicious. I can actually still taste it in my mouth today. And that's why I really enjoy baking. I'm going to be making some chocolate chip cookies today. With the Christmas tree, that's where a lot of Christmas memories start for families. With the decorating of the Christmas tree, the decking of the halls as one big family. And Montana this year will actually have a unique opportunity to come together as one big family by providing the Christmas tree for the entire nation. The U.S. Capitol, a symbol of American democracy. The iconic building sits on 58 acres that was once a wooded wilderness. Now, once a year, a piece of those woods comes back.
This project, it breaks through all barriers and just brings the spirit of the holidays and spirit of community together. So it's one of those great feel-good things I think we really need in our country right now.
The tree that stands on Capitol Hill every Christmas is known as the People's Tree. The tradition started in 1964 when Speaker of the House John McCormick planted a live Douglas fir on the lawn. That tree lived just 3 years. In 1970, the Capitol architect asked the U.S. Forest Service to begin providing a Christmas tree. And that's the history most people will tell you about the Capitol Christmas tree. But folks from Northwest Montana, like Richard Arstad, who now works with the Montana Historical Society, will tell you a different story.
It started actually for the first time in Montana in 1958 with the National Christmas Tree.
People from Libby called it Ike's Tree.
It was a huge event, especially for a small community like Libby, Montana, and a small county like Lincoln County.
By 1956, Northwest Montana had sent more than 1 million Christmas trees to people across the nation. Eureka even became known as the Christmas tree capital of the world, so sending this tree to Washington, D.C. on railcar was a point of pride. No matter how or when the tradition began, it's always been an honor when a tree from your state gets to sit on the lawn at the U.S. Capitol for all the nation to see.
I think it's an honor for the Kootenai. I think it's an honor for all of the communities involved.
The Kootenai National Forest in 1989 also had the honor of providing the Capitol Christmas tree and sent this beauty to Washington, D.C. So they have big aspirations to live up to, and this year they have another chance to show off.
So we've been really excited to get this opportunity and do it again.
Chris Savage is the forest supervisor for the Kootenai National Forest. He and his team have spent the last 12 months searching for the perfect tree, and they have lots of ground to cover, according to Sandy Mason, the Lands and Special Use Program Manager.
We're a big forest. It consists all the way from Trout Creek to Eureka and Libby, Troy, and everything all in between. And we go clear to the Canadian border.
2.2 million acres, to be exact. The Kootenai National Forest is almost 3 times the size of Rhode Island.
I mean, this area is just spectacular, and with all the different kinds of tree species that we have, you know, there's over 12 different types of species that one would see on this forest. There's 3 different mountain ranges, the water bodies, the rivers, the wildlife. You know, we have just a tremendous treasure up here in the northwest part of the state that we're really proud of and hope to share that with everybody.
A treasure, for sure. But finding the perfect Christmas tree in such a vast area is like hunting for long-lost treasure.
So it's not as easy as you think to go out and spot that tree. I don't know, there for several months we'd go out on drives and I'm always looking up, oh, would that be a good tree or would that be a good tree? And so it's a lot harder than what you think it would be. I've never looked at any of the trees to say, oh, that would make a good Christmas tree or it would not make a good Christmas tree. But I look now, and I still look. Every once in a while I'll look up and say, oh, that would be a nice tree, and my husband will just give me this, it's enough. So, but it's all good.
They assemble a team of tree spotters, so to speak, to head out into the woods.
The tree had to be at least 60 feet tall.
They wanted a nice even conical shape on it with a real full crown.
You know, I had to look perfect from from every angle. You know, this isn't the kind of Christmas tree that you can tuck in the corner of your house if one side isn't looking too good.
But finding the perfect tree is much harder than they anticipated.
I thought it'd be easier to find a tree like that, but we looked and looked and looked, and it is hard to find one that's good all the way around.
After months of searching in the winter snow and the summer sun, the team narrows down their options to eight needle-branched contestants to present to the Capitol architect.
One tree was down at Trout Creek. There was 2 trees up in this general area, up in the Yak, and then we had 4 in the Eureka area, and we had 2 out in the Fortine area.
But have they found the one? The Capitol architect needs to find out for himself, so he flies all the way out to Montana to spend a few days looking up at trees at our big blue Montana sky.
I mean, when he came out here, he had his binoculars and he was looking in the tree and seeing if there was any spots or openings.
So in a forest full of trees, how do you pick the perfect Christmas tree, one that represents the entire country? Coming up after the break, we'll introduce you to the Capitol Christmas tree.
Still to come, the Capitol Christmas tree's big reveal.
Our slogan this year was Beauty of the Big Sky, and we really wanted to capture that.
Every tree may look the same, but every tree is different.
Building up to this moment, just fingers crossed, hope it goes smooth.
We join you now from deep inside the Kootenai National Forest, just miles from the Canadian border, in a location marked on a map only by latitude and longitude. It's where this stunning Christmas tree was found.
It's 81 feet tall right now.
81 feet tall, native to the Kootenai National Forest. And this Engelmann spruce is just what the architect at the U.S. Capitol was looking for.
It's big, it's full, it's tall.
One of the things I really liked about this particular tree was the color of it. The color stood out to the folks from Washington that picked it.
And even better yet, the tree was easily accessible, another criteria that often comes into play when finding the perfect Christmas tree. Facilities manager Rob Malyevac says since the tree was growing so close to a Forest Service cabin in the Yak, it would eventually have to be cut down anyway.
This is a beautiful tree. It would need to go at some point anyways, so we're actually, I think, making the best use out of this tree.
And this tree, like this land, was made for you and me. So on a cold day in early November, the whole town gathers to see the chosen Capitol Christmas tree start its journey.
Building up to this moment, just fingers crossed, hope it goes smooth.
It's Rob's job to make sure the tree comes down safely and gets packaged for its lengthy trip to Washington, D.C. But the process is not as simple as cutting a tree at its trunk and watching it fall.
Sometimes you feel real confident, other times your confidence fades away and you just have to think. You just prepare the best you can and hope for the best.
Hope for the best, but prepare for perfection. The measurements must be exact. That's because the Capitol grounds can only house a tree that's 68 feet tall. This beauty stood 81 feet tall. This is when the tree trimming begins. The bottom limbs of the tree are cut so it can be brought down to size. Men hoist themselves from the tree branches. After the final limbs fall to the ground, they put the finishing touches on the tree to prevent it from falling. Straps attached to a crane. The crane will hold a heavy but precious load.
Yes, I'm going to cut the tree with this saw.
And then it's Pete Talmadge's big moment.
A sawyer is a person who, with a chainsaw in their hands, cuts trees down. I've never cut a tree that was attached to a crane before, so that will be interesting.
Interesting and unexpected. When Forest Service officials found navigating the heavy machinery on ice-covered roads was difficult, they made the decision to cut the tree down on the same day as the community celebration, instead of the following day. But it is an opportunity Pete is not going to pass up.
We didn't realize at first how amazing this opportunity is. Then we got to realizing, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and not everybody gets asked to do this.
A fifth-generation sawyer from Troy, He's part of a dying breed.
And there used to be a lot of us that cut trees down, but now a lot of it's done with machines, and there's not a lot of us left.
Just minutes before the felling of the Capitol Christmas tree, the importance of his job is setting in.
You know, there is a logging heritage in our community that is disappearing, and we are lucky enough to be able to remain in that business, and we feel very privileged to be able to continue to do it. We hope that future generations get to be able to continue to do it.
With his family and the entire community watching, Pete goes to work. His chainsaw roars to life. When the tree's trunk, 30 inches in diameter, is cut, the heavy lifting begins. A team of specialized crane operators hoist the tree over the building from its crown, slow and steady. Another crane comes into play, holding the tree's trunk, lifting it into the air, slow and steady. And then, slow and steady, it goes to rest on the truck's cradle.
We've got our tree.
Now that the tree has fallen, the real journey begins. Getting it from the Yak to Washington, D.C. is going to be another big feat. We'll introduce you to the Santa driving this sleigh coming up after the break.
And ahead, all aboard.
Getting in here today, backing this in, I said, now he's just showing off.
Larry Speakermeyer gets ready to get behind the wheel of this big rig.
It's awesome.
He's carrying a precious load for the whole nation to see. The People's Tree.
To be able to represent Montana is such an honor.
Some assume the journey to our nation's capital begins here, but traveling with this tree is no easy feat. It first must be prepped for the 3,400-mile trek across the country. Just a week ago, the Capitol Christmas tree stood 81 feet tall. Now, with a wingspan of 35 feet, it lays cradled on the bed of a whitewood semi-truck in Libby.
So it has to basically fit into an 8-foot by 8-foot box. So it's going to be challenging.
Rob Maluvac and a team with the Kootenai National Forest have to work their magic. The tree's first stop is an airplane hangar in Libby, where crews will spend days flattening and tightening its limbs.
We'll be trying to pull them gradually over the course of a couple days. Lots of straps and some time and patience.
5 days later, the tree, snuggled in tight, is ready to hit the road.
And then we're off and running from there. So we've got 20 places all across the country that we're stopping, and the party begins.
Well, the Capitol Christmas tree is officially on the move, and inside this sleigh, one of the safest drivers you'll ever find.
All right, go ahead, Nate. We're ready to roll.
He's been a truck driver for 49 years, but this is Larry's trip of a lifetime. The 70-year-old Plains resident is charged with driving this year's Capitol Christmas tree from the Kootenai National Forest to the U.S. Capitol's west front lawn.
I couldn't believe that they picked me, chose me to do this.
Choose Outdoors is a nonprofit assisting the U.S. Forest Service with the transport of the tree. Choose Outdoors chose Whitewood Transport, Larry's employer, for the journey. Larry's boss says the decision to put him behind the wheel was an easy one to make.
And certainly we have one of the greatest drivers with Larry Speakermeyer, his 1.6 million accident-free miles.
They started talking about the driving record and Whitewood's safety record here with us.
Larry has also placed 6th in the National Truck Driving Championships and has been named Motor Carriers of Montana's Driver of the Year twice. It's this experience in safe driving that is leading to a smooth ride on the road.
Wow, this is a pretty smooth ride.
Not your ordinary truck.
And this is not the truck Larry ordinarily drives cross-country. That's usually a Western Star.
Heavier suspension and heavier components, so it's not quite as smooth a ride as this. And the loads I haul are a lot heavier than this. So this is a touring load here I got on.
He's touring the country in a Kenworth T680 Advantage, and it's dressed to impress. Among the GPS and many mirrors to help prevent a crash, Larry has another wingman, the Bendix Wingman. It's a radar-based sensor mounted to the front of the 102-foot-long truck.
It doesn't let me get too close to vehicles. It warns me how close I'm within 6 seconds of the vehicle in front. You'll hear a beep if I get to the right shoulder too far, or if I get on the center line, it'll beep.
It's technology that has already come in handy. Within the first few miles of the tour, in fact.
Coming out of the Yak, that was an ice road truckers moment there because it was icy road and some of the pictures they got were just awesome.
He's referring to Yak River Road. It's known to locals as Dead Man's Corner. You can see how the road narrows, the turn tightens, and to top it all off, it's covered in snow and ice.
So how are you feeling driving through that?
Oh, I didn't really realize, it was just part of the road, but then after I seen the picture, and it was awesome. Some of the pictures that people have captured already, just unbelievable.
And Larry knows the challenges won't end there.
It's a challenge with this trailer because of the wheelbase setup on it. So there will be some challenging corners, and we'll have one of them right here in Whitefish.
En route to Whitefish, heading east on 2nd Street. Giving you the green light. To Highway 93 South, it's a 90-degree right turn.
Larry, this is Nathan. We're gonna take a minute to clear this 90-degree intersection up here, so we may have to come to a complete stop.
Okay, thank you.
And also, Rob, if you can, in the Suburban, if you can get your flashers going on and just follow the truck straight through, that will be great. Got it, thanks.
How do you feel about that?
It was a corner, just like we thought.
A challenging turn.
Feel a little relaxed, like, ooh.
We got around it.
And still a smile on Larry's face, because he knows he, and most importantly the tree, are in good hands.
But I feel I have enough leadership getting me where I'm going with all the local enforcement and what we have for security on the whole thing, that they can make it all work.
And at each stop along the way, work out it does, with laughter in Libby, smiles in Eureka, oohs and ahs in Great Falls.
It doesn't come from Montana often, so it's a grand occasion. And to see so many people from Great Falls coming out there, it really kind of brings everybody up into the Christmas spirit a little early.
Dancing and presents on the Fort Belknap Indian Reservation, shouts and applause.
Let's give a big hand to Larry Speakermeyer, our driver here that's volunteered from Plains, Montana.
In Whitefish, and everywhere they go, markings are made from people at places all across Montana.
Our daughter goes to James Madison University in Virginia, which is right outside of DC, and we're going to have her sign and add her name in the same spot.
In the hopes of sprinkling the Christmas cheer throughout the country. And along the way, the tree picked up more than just signatures, mementos that will go back to Washington, D.C. to show the nation Montana's creative side. Up next, A Star is Born.
Finding the perfect tree for some is their favorite part of the Christmas holiday. For others, it's the decorating of the Christmas tree, pulling the ornaments out of the box, putting them on the tree from the bottom until the top, until the final touch, the star. Well, just like you decorate your tree, people across the state have spent the entire year making sure that Montana's capital Christmas tree looks its best.
Our slogan this year was Beauty of the Big Sky, and we really wanted to capture that.
Kootenai National Forest Supervisor Chris Savage says from the moment he and his staff learned the Forest Service had the honor of presenting this year's capital Christmas tree, they wanted to put Montana's best foot forward.
We really wanted to make sure that as this tree leaves Montana and works its way to the U.S. Capitol, that we really wanted to make it feel like this tree came from Montana. So it wasn't just a Forest Service effort, it was a state of Montana effort.
They picked a sawyer from Troy, crane operators from Bozeman, a trucking company from Billings, and a driver from Plains. But beyond that, thousands of pieces of Montana will be accompanying the tree to Washington, D.C.
We have been working almost the entire time building ornaments, making ornaments, tree skirts, companion trees, working with communities all across Montana to produce. We were able to produce over 13,000 ornaments.
School children and quilting groups from across the state have pitched in to hand make ornaments and tree skirts that will decorate this tree and the 66 smaller trees that will fill various offices in the U.S. Capitol building.
The people in the state of Montana have been phenomenal. We're still getting ornaments in from people, and people are still requesting what they can do.
There is sure to be plenty of Montana flair in Washington, D.C., including the real star of the show that sits atop the Capitol Christmas tree.
It's 5 feet tall, 4 feet wide, almost 2 feet thick, and weighs just about 80 pounds.
It's modeled to look like the state flower, the bitterroot. It's made from copper as a nod to the rich copper mining tradition of Butte. And it was designed, fabricated, and lit entirely by Montana-based businesses, the Washington Corporation and Western Montana Lighting in Missoula, and Split Mountain Metals in Bozeman. But unlike the local quilting clubs, owner Brad Brettinson says he had a short timeline to turn the light on for this project.
We had essentially 3 weeks to get the entire project done, so it was a time crunch for sure.
Still, it's a project Brad says is well worth it. This star is the first to come from the state supplying the Capitol Christmas tree.
The last star, to my knowledge, was built in the 70s.
From the people's tree to the people's star to the person who has the honor of lighting the Capitol Christmas tree. That task has been given to 11-year-old Ridley Brandmeier. He's a 6th grader at Sacagawea Middle School in Bozeman.
He's one of the most active kids I know.
Earlier this year, Ridley tragically lost all the fingers on his right hand in an accident. Despite that accident, he's continued swimming and playing music. And here is his uncle back in July talking about Ridley's talents.
We really want to see him get back to doing all those activities that he loves so much.
Ridley's role of flipping the switch on the Capitol Christmas tree is just one of many roles Montanans have taken on to send a message to the thousands of people in Washington, D.C. who will see it.
I hope they'll take a look at that tree and see how pretty it is, and then take a look at all of the ornaments that have been done on there, and they'll put Montana as a bucket list on their bucket list as a place to come visit, especially Northwest Montana. We're a beautiful spot.
Adding a little Montana to this year's Christmas magic. My journey does not end here. I will also be traveling to Washington, D.C. for the lighting of the Capitol Christmas tree on Wednesday, December 6th. Yes, you can join me for complete live coverage of all of the festivities on this station. In the meantime, have a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season.